You think you know power. You think power is a black credit card or a designer dress? You are wrong. Real power is invisible until it's too late. When Vanessa Sterling, the spoiled daughter of the city's wealthiest tech mogul, decided to destroy a poor waitress named Serena for a spilled drop of wine, she thought she was untouchable. She laughed while Serena cried. But Vanessa didn't notice the quiet, elderly man sitting in the corner. She didn't know that humiliating that waitress would cost her family everything. Because sometimes the person serving your food is protected by the devil himself. The rain battered against the panoramic windows of the Gilded Lily, the most exclusive Italian restaurant in downtown Chicago. Inside, the air smelled of truffle oil, aged Barolo, and old money. For Serena Rostova, however, it just smelled like exhaustion. Serena adjusted the collar of her stiff black uniform. Her feet were throbbing inside cheap, non-slip shoes that were 2 months past their expiration date. She was 22, a nursing student by day and a servant to the elite by night. Every muscle in her body ached from a double shift, but she couldn't afford to complain. Her mother's dialysis treatments weren't covered by insurance, and the stack of medical bills on her kitchen counter was growing taller than the skyscrapers outside. "Table 4 needs water. Now, Serena, stop daydreaming," hissed Marco, the floor manager. Marco was a thin, nervous man who treated the wealthy patrons like gods and his staff like insects. "Yes, Marco. Right away," Serena whispered, grabbing a crystal pitcher. The restaurant was buzzing tonight. Politicians, hedge fund managers, and socialites filled the velvet booths. But the energy shifted the moment the heavy oak doors swung open. A hush fell over the front of the house. Walking in was Vanessa Sterling. Vanessa was 24, beautiful in a sharp, terrifying way, and draped in a red Versace dress that cost more than Serena made in 3 years. She was flanked by 2 friends who looked more like accessories than humans, and her boyfriend, Brad, the investment banker, who spent more time looking at his reflection in his spoon than at his girlfriend. Vanessa didn't wait to be seated. She walked straight to the prime center table, the one reserved for VIPs, and sat down. "Excuse me, miss," Marco stuttered, rushing over, sweating. "That table is actually reserved for—" Vanessa didn't even look up from her phone. She simply held up a hand, silencing him. "My father is Richard Sterling. Do you really want to tell me where I can and cannot sit? Bring me a bottle of your 82 Chateau Margaux, and make sure the glasses are clean this time." Marco, spineless as ever, bowed. "Of course, Miss Sterling, right away." He turned and snapped his fingers at Serena. "Serena, table 4. Now, don't mess this up." Serena took a deep breath. She knew Vanessa by reputation. Everyone in the service industry did. Vanessa was known for sending food back because the color didn't match her mood, or getting valets fired for adjusting her seat. She was a predator looking for prey, and tonight, Serena was walking right into the lion's den. Serena approached the table with the heavy silver tray, her hands trembling slightly from fatigue. "Good evening. Welcome to the Gilded Lily. May I start you with—" "Water," Vanessa interrupted, not looking at her. "Sparkling. And don't pour it like you're putting out a fire. Gently." "Yes, ma'am." Serena began to pour. She was careful, she was precise. But as she leaned over to fill Brad's glass, Vanessa abruptly threw her arm back to gesture a story she was telling. Crash. Vanessa's hand struck the heavy crystal pitcher in Serena's grip. The pitcher wobbled, tipped, and a splash of ice-cold water landed on the hem of Vanessa's red dress. The restaurant went silent. Serena froze, her heart hammering against her ribs like a trapped bird. She grabbed a napkin instinctively. "Oh my God, I am so sorry, Miss Sterling." Let me help you. Vanessa stood up slowly. The silence in the room was deafening. She looked at the small, wet spot on her dress, then looked at Serena. Her eyes weren't angry. They were amused. It was a cruel, dark amusement. "You touched me," Vanessa said, her voice dangerously quiet. "You spilled filthy tap water on a $10,000 dress. It was an accident, I swear. You moved your arm, and are you blaming me?" Vanessa's voice rose an octave, designed to attract maximum attention. "This incompetent rat just blamed me for her clumsiness." Marco came running, his face pale. "Miss Sterling, I am so sorry. What happened?" "This thing," Vanessa pointed a manicured finger at Serena, "ruined my night. I want her fired. No, firing is too easy. I want her to apologize. Properly." Serena felt the tears stinging her eyes. She bit her lip so hard she tasted iron. "I apologized, miss. I'm truly sorry." "Not like that," Vanessa smirked, picking up her glass of red wine, the expensive vintage Marco had just poured. The room watched in horror as Vanessa deliberately tilted her glass, pouring the dark red liquid onto the pristine white carpet right in front of Serena's shoes. "Oops," Vanessa deadpanned. "Now look what you made me do." She pointed at the wine-soaked carpet. "Clean it up." Serena grabbed a towel from her belt. "Yes, I'll get the mop." "No," Vanessa commanded, her voice cutting through the room like a whip. "On your knees. Use your apron. And don't get up until it's spotless." The air in the Gilded Lily became heavy, suffocating. This wasn't just a customer complaint anymore. It was a public execution of dignity. Serena looked at Marco, pleading with her eyes. "Help me. Please." But Marco looked away. He looked at the floor, at the walls, anywhere but at Serena. He was terrified of Richard Sterling's influence. Losing the Sterling account could bankrupt the restaurant. "Serena," Marco whispered, his voice trembling, Just do it quickly so we can move on." Serena felt something inside her break. It wasn't her spirit. She was a survivor. But her faith in humanity. She thought about her mother, hooked up to the dialysis machine. She thought about the rent due on Tuesday. She couldn't lose this job. The tips tonight alone were supposed to pay for her mother's medication. Slowly, agonizingly, Serena lowered herself to her knees. A ripple of murmurs went through the restaurant. Some patrons looked disgusted, turning away. Others, the more sadistic ones, watched with fascination. Brad, Vanessa's boyfriend, chuckled nervously and took a sip of his drink. "That's it," Vanessa said, pulling out her phone. "This is going on my story. Everyone needs to see where the help belongs." She started recording. The red light of the phone camera felt like a sniper's laser on Serena's forehead. Serena took the hem of her white apron, the only clean thing she had, and began to dab at the red wine stain on the carpet. The rough fibers of the rug scraped against her knuckles. The smell of the expensive wine was nauseating. "Harder," Vanessa taunted, zooming in with her phone. "It's still stained, just like your reputation. God, look at her hands, Brad. Have you ever seen hands that rough? It's like she works in a coal mine." Serena scrubbed harder, tears finally spilling over. One tear fell onto the carpet, mixing with the wine. "Oh, look, she's crying," Vanessa laughed, addressing her phone camera. "Newsflash, honey. Tears don't clean carpets. Elbow grease does. Maybe if you learned how to scrub properly, you wouldn't be a minimum wage nobody." "That is enough." The voice didn't come from Marco. It didn't come from Brad. It came from the corner booth. Booth 9. Booth 9 was usually reserved for quiet businessmen. Tonight it was occupied by a single old man. He had been there for an hour, nursing a single espresso and reading a newspaper. He wore a charcoal suit that was out of style by about 20 years, and a fedora sat on the table next to him. He looked like a grandfather waiting for a bus. But when he spoke, the temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. Vanessa spun around, annoyed that her content creation was being interrupted. "Excuse me? Who asked you, Grandpa?" The old man folded his newspaper slowly. He placed it on the table, lining up the edges perfectly. He stood up. He wasn't tall, and he used a cane with a silver wolf's head handle, but he moved with a terrifying, predatory grace. He walked out of the shadows of the booth and into the light of the chandelier. He had steel-grey hair, deep-set eyes that looked like black holes, and a scar running from his jaw to his ear. "I said," the man repeated, his voice sounding like gravel grinding together. "That is enough." Vanessa rolled her eyes. "Marco, get this geriatric out of here. He's ruining the vibe." Marco looked at the old man. He squinted. Then his eyes widened. All the blood drained from Marco's face, leaving him looking like a corpse. He started shaking, visibly shaking, more than he had with Vanessa. "Mr. Moretti," Marco gasped. I didn't know you were dining with us tonight." "I like a quiet meal," the old man, Don Salvatore Moretti, said calmly. He didn't look at Marco. His eyes were fixed on Vanessa. "But it seems quiet is expensive tonight," Vanessa scoffed. "Moretti? Who cares? Listen, old man, sit down and eat your soup before it gets cold. I'm teaching this girl a lesson." Don Salvatore took a step closer. He ignored Vanessa and looked down at Serena, who was still on her knees, frozen in shock. "Stand up, child," Salvatore said softly. Serena looked up at him. There was something familiar in his eyes, something she couldn't place, a kindness that contradicted his scary appearance. I can't, sir," Serena whispered. "She'll have me fired." "She will do no such thing," Salvatore said. He extended a hand. It was weathered, covered in age spots, but steady as a rock. "Take my hand." Serena hesitated, then reached out. Salvatore gripped her hand and pulled her to her feet with surprising strength. He took a pristine white handkerchief from his breast pocket and handed it to her. "Wipe your face," he commanded gently. "Tears are too valuable to waste on trash." Vanessa's jaw dropped. "Trash? Did you just call me trash? Do you have any idea who my father is?" Salvatore finally turned his full attention to Vanessa. He looked at her, the way a human looks at a cockroach. "I know exactly who your father is, Vanessa," Salvatore said. "Richard Sterling. He imports microchips. He cheats on his taxes. And he has a gambling debt in Atlantic City that he's been trying to hide for 6 months. Vanessa went pale. How do you know that?" "I know many things," Salvatore said, tapping his cane on the floor. "I also know that this table you are sitting at, it belongs to me." "This is the VIP table," Vanessa shrieked, trying to regain her ground. "My father pays." "Your father pays with money," Salvatore interrupted, his voice dropping to a lethal whisper. "I pay with respect, and you have none." Salvatore turned to Marco. "Marco." "Yes, Don Moretti," Marco squeaked. "Why is this woman sitting at my table, and why is she abusing my guest?" The twist hit the room like a physical blow. "Your guest?" Vanessa laughed nervously. "Her? The waitress? She's a nobody. She's a servant." Salvatore smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. "A nobody? Is that what you think?" He walked over to Serena and placed a protective hand on her shoulder. "Vanessa," Salvatore said, "you see a waitress? I see the woman who saved my life 3 years ago when I collapsed on 5th Avenue, and everyone else, people just like you, stepped over me." Serena gasped. She looked at the old man closely. The memory flashed back. A rainy Tuesday. An old man clutching his chest on the sidewalk. She had dropped her groceries, performed CPR for 10 minutes until the ambulance came, and rode with him to the hospital. She never gave her name, just made sure he was safe and left to get to her shift. "You," Serena whispered. "The man with the blue tie." "The man with the heart attack," Salvatore corrected with a wink. "I have been looking for you for 3 years, Serena. I finally found you working here 2 weeks ago. I've been coming every night, waiting for the right moment to introduce myself. I didn't expect this to be the introduction." He turned back to Vanessa, his eyes turning to ice. "You humiliated my savior," Salvatore said, "and now I am going to ruin you." Vanessa laughed, but it sounded hysterical. "You're crazy. You're just some old mobster wannabe. My dad will buy this whole building and evict you." Salvatore reached into his pocket and pulled out a phone. It was an old flip phone. He dialed a number and put it to his speaker. "Hello," a voice answered. It was a man's voice. Shaky. "Richard," Salvatore said. "Don Salvatore." The voice on the phone sounded terrified. I didn't expect a call. I have the money, I swear. I just need another week." "Shut up, Richard," Salvatore said calmly. "I'm not calling about the money. I'm calling about your daughter. She's at the Gilded Lily. She just insulted me. She insulted a friend of mine." "Oh, God," Richard Sterling's voice cracked. "Don Salvatore, please. She's young. She's stupid. Please don't hurt her." "I won't touch a hair on her head," Salvatore promised. "But Richard, your line of credit with my associates? It's closed, effective immediately. And that construction project you're starting on the waterfront? The unions are going to strike tomorrow morning, indefinitely." "No!" Richard screamed on the phone. "That will bankrupt me. Salvatore, please, put her on the phone." Salvatore held the phone out to Vanessa. She was trembling so hard her bracelets were rattling. "Daddy," she whispered. "You idiot!" Richard roared through the speaker, loud enough for the whole restaurant to hear. "Do you know who that is? That is the capo di tutti I capi of Chicago. You just cost us everything. Apologize. Get on your knees and beg him." Vanessa dropped the phone. She looked at Serena, then at Salvatore. The arrogance was gone, replaced by pure, unadulterated fear. I, Vanessa stammered. "Part 2 is finished," Salvatore said to the room. "But the night is young." He looked at Marco. "Bring me a bottle of the 45 Romane Conti, and bring 2 glasses." He looked at Serena. "You're dining with me tonight, my dear. Sit down." "But my shift," Serena stammered. "You don't work here anymore," Salvatore said. "Marco, she quits, correct?" "Correct! Absolutely correct!" Marco yelled. "Good," Salvatore said. He sat down in the booth Vanessa had claimed and gestured to the empty seat opposite him. "Sit, Serena. We have much to discuss. And you." He pointed his cane at Vanessa, who was standing there, stunned and weeping. "You can leave, but take the back exit. The garbage truck is loading. It feels appropriate." Serena sat on the velvet cushion of the booth, her body stiff with adrenaline. Across from her, the most feared man in Chicago was carefully unfolding a napkin. The restaurant, usually a cacophony of clinking silverware and polite chatter, was eerily quiet. Every waiter, every busboy, and every patron was trying to listen without looking like they were listening. Marco, the manager who had nearly fired Serena minutes ago, approached the table with trembling hands. He held a dusty bottle of 1945 Romane Conti, as if it were a holy relic. "Shall I pour, Don Moretti?" Marco asked, his voice cracking. "Leave the bottle," Salvatore said without looking up. "And Marco, close the restaurant. I don't want any more interruptions." "But the other guests," Marco stammered. Salvatore raised an eyebrow. Did I stutter? No, sir. Closing immediately. Marco rushed off, and within minutes, the confused and disgruntled wealthy patrons were being ushered out into the rain, their half-eaten risottos left behind. Soon it was just Serena, Salvatore, and the silent, empty expanse of the Gilded Lily. Salvatore poured the wine. The liquid was a deep, rich ruby color. He pushed a glass toward Serena. "Drink," he said softly. "It will calm your nerves." Serena stared at the glass. "I don't understand," she whispered. You're the Mafia boss, the one they talk about on the news?" Salvatore took a sip, savoring the vintage. "The news calls me a monster. My friends call me a savior. My enemies don't call me anything, because they are usually unable to speak. The question is, Serena, who are you?" "I'm just a waitress," Serena said, looking down at her hands, the hands Vanessa had mocked. They were red and raw from scrubbing the carpet. "No," Salvatore said firmly. 3 years ago, on Fifth Avenue, I had a heart attack. My bodyguards had been separated from me by a traffic accident. I was alone. I fell to the pavement. Hundreds of people walked past me. Businessmen in expensive suits, tourists. They looked at me and saw a dying old man, and they kept walking. They didn't want to get involved." He leaned forward, his dark eyes intense. "But you stopped. You were wearing worn-out sneakers and carrying a heavy backpack. You dropped everything. You performed CPR until your arms gave out. You saved my life, Serena. And when the paramedics arrived, you disappeared before I could thank you. I have the face of the girl who saved me burned into my memory." Serena felt a tear roll down her cheek. "I just did what anyone would do." "That is where you are wrong," Salvatore said. "Vanessa Sterling didn't do what anyone would do. She acted with cruelty because she believes she is above consequences. You acted with mercy because you value life. That makes you royalty in my eyes, more than any of the people who eat here." He reached into his suit pocket and pulled out a thick envelope. He slid it across the table. "What is this?" Serena asked. "Open it." Serena opened the envelope. Inside was a check. The amount made her gasp audibly. It was enough to pay off her mother's medical bills, her nursing school tuition, and buy a small house. "I can't accept this," Serena said, pushing it back immediately. Salvatore frowned. "Why?" "It is a debt I owe." "I didn't save you for money," Serena said, her voice shaking but firm. "If I take this, it cheapens it. I don't want charity, Mr. Moretti. I want to earn my way." Salvatore stared at her for a long moment. The silence stretched, tense and heavy. Then, slowly, a genuine smile spread across his scarred face. "Incredible," he murmured. "I offer her a fortune, and she refuses. You have pride, Serena. Dangerous pride. I like it." He took the check and tore it into pieces. "Fine. No charity," Salvatore said. "Then let's talk business. You are fired from this place." "Good. You are too smart to carry trays for idiots. You are a nursing student, yes?" "Yes. I have 1 year left." "My private physician, Dr. Ayres, needs an apprentice. He manages a private clinic that treats people in my line of work who cannot go to public hospitals. It is high stress, high trauma, and requires absolute discretion. It pays 5 times what you make here, and I cover your tuition." Serena's eyes widened. "You want me to be a mob nurse?" "I want you to be my nurse," Salvatore corrected. "My health is complicated. I need someone I trust nearby, and I trust the hands that restarted my heart." Serena thought about her mother, the dialysis, the constant fear of eviction. Then she thought about Vanessa's laughter as she poured the wine on the floor. "I'll take the job," Serena said. "Good." Salvatore raised his glass. to new beginnings. Just as their glasses clinked, the front doors of the restaurant burst open. The silence was shattered. It wasn't Marco. It wasn't a guest. It was the police. 4 uniformed officers and 1 man in a trench coat marched in, rain dripping from their hats. The man in the trench coat had a smug, oily look on his face. He was Detective Miller, and standing behind him, shivering in the cold but wearing a triumphant grin, was Vanessa Sterling. "That's her!" Vanessa screamed, pointing at Serena. "That's the thief! She assaulted me and stole my diamond bracelet. I saw her put it in her apron." Serena stood up, the chair scraping loudly against the floor. "What? You're lying." Detective Miller walked up to the table, ignoring Salvatore completely. He pulled out a pair of handcuffs. "Serena Rostova," Miller said, his voice bored. "You're under arrest for grand larceny and assault. Turn around and put your hands behind your back." The atmosphere in the restaurant shifted from intimate to volatile in a heartbeat. The warm glow of the chandelier seemed to turn harsh and cold. Serena backed away, bumping into the table. "I didn't steal anything. She's lying. Check the cameras." "We'll check everything at the station," Miller sneered, reaching for Serena's arm. "Right now you're coming with me. Miss Sterling says you attacked her in the back alley after you were fired." "I haven't left this table," Serena cried. "Don't touch her." The command came from Salvatore. He hadn't stood up. He hadn't raised his voice. He was simply swirling the wine in his glass, looking at the red vortex. Detective Miller paused. He looked at the old man. Miller was a corrupt cop, accustomed to bullying street thugs and teenagers. He saw an old man in a suit and assumed he was just a rich patron. "Stay out of this, Grandpa," Miller warned. "Unless you want an obstruction of justice charge, this is police business." Vanessa stepped forward, her confidence restored. She had called Detective Miller her father's fixer the moment she was kicked out. She knew how the game was played. Money bought the law. "He's an accomplice," Vanessa shrieked. "He threatened me, too. Arrest him as well, Miller. My father will double your bonus." Salvatore finally looked up. He set his glass down with a sharp clink. "Detective Miller," Salvatore said. "Badge number 49902. Your wife's name is Sarah. Your daughter Emily goes to St. Mary's High School. And you have a gambling addiction that has put you $50,000 in debt to the Russo brothers." Miller froze. His hand hovered inches from Serena's arm. The color drained from his face. How do you know that?" Miller whispered. "The Russo brothers work for me," Salvatore said simply. "Everyone works for me." Salvatore stood up. He picked up his cane. He walked around the table, the sound of the cane hitting the floor echoing like a gavel striking a sound block. Click, click, click. He stopped right in front of Miller. The detective was taller, but he seemed to shrink in Salvatore's presence. "You came into my dinner," Salvatore said, his voice low and dangerous. "You threatened my guest, and you are taking orders from a spoiled child who thinks her father's money makes her a god." Salvatore reached into Miller's trenchcoat pocket. The other officers flinched, hands going to their guns, but Salvatore moved with such casual authority that they hesitated. Salvatore pulled out a diamond bracelet. "Is this the missing evidence?" Salvatore asked, holding it up to the light. Vanessa gasped. "How did you planted it on Miller before you walked in, intending for him to find it on Serena," Salvatore said. "A classic frame-up. Clumsy. Amateur." He tossed the bracelet to Vanessa. She caught it reflexively. "Take your trinket," Salvatore said, "and leave before I lose my patience." Miller looked at Vanessa, then at Salvatore. He realized who he was dealing with. Don Moretti, the ghost of Chicago. "Miss Sterling," Miller stammered, backing away. I can't do this. Not him. You didn't say it was him." "You coward," Vanessa screamed. "Arrest him! Shoot him! My father pays you." "Your father pays him thousands," Salvatore said. "I pay the police commissioner millions." He looked at the 4 uniformed officers behind Miller. "Get this trash out of my sight. If I see a squad car in front of this restaurant for the next hour, I will have every one of you traffic cops patrolling the sewers by tomorrow morning." The officers didn't hesitate. They knew the hierarchy of the city. They grabbed Miller by the arm. "Let's go, detective. We're leaving." Vanessa was left standing alone again. Her plan had backfired spectacularly. She looked at Serena, who was standing safe behind Salvatore's shoulder. Vanessa's face twisted into a mask of pure, unadulterated hatred. "This isn't over," Vanessa hissed. "You think you've won? You think because you have some old gangster sugar daddy you're safe? My father is Richard Sterling. He has friends too. Dangerous friends. Go home, little girl," Salvatore said, dismissing her with a wave of his hand. Vanessa turned and stormed out into the rain, slamming the heavy oak doors behind her. Serena let out a breath she didn't know she was holding. Her legs felt weak. She grabbed the edge of the table for support. "Are you all right?" Salvatore asked, his voice instantly returning to that gentle, grandfatherly tone. I think so," Serena said. "But she said her father has dangerous friends." Salvatore's expression darkened. He looked at the door where Vanessa had exited. "Richard Sterling is a desperate man," Salvatore muttered. "Desperate men do stupid things. And Vanessa, she has been humiliated twice tonight. Hate is a powerful fuel." He turned to Serena. "You cannot go back to your apartment tonight." "What? Why?" "Because they know who you are now. Vanessa is vindictive. She won't stop at the police. If she can't arrest you, she will try to hurt you. She will send people to your home, or worse, to your mother's hospital." Serena felt a cold spike of terror in her chest. "My mom." "I have already sent men to the hospital," Salvatore assured her. "2 of my best guards are sitting outside her room right now. No one gets in without my permission. Your mother is safe." Serena looked at him with gratitude, but also fear. Her life had changed completely in the span of 2 hours. She was no longer just a waitress. She was a pawn in a war between a Mafia don and a billionaire tycoon. "Come," Salvatore said, offering her his arm. "My car is out back. I am taking you to the estate. It is a fortress. You will be safe there until I settle this with Richard Sterling." "How do you settle it?" Serena asked as they walked toward the kitchen exit. Salvatore didn't answer immediately. He pushed open the back door. The rain was pouring down in sheets. A sleek, black armored limousine was waiting in the alley, engine purring. A massive bodyguard opened the door. As Serena slid into the leather seat, Salvatore looked back at the city skyline. "I settle it," Salvatore said, "by removing the problem." But as Salvatore moved to get in the car, a shot rang out. Bang! The side mirror of the limousine shattered. "Get down!" the bodyguard screamed, shoving Salvatore into the car and slamming the door. "Drive! Drive!" The car screeched out of the alley, tires spinning on the wet pavement. Serena screamed, ducking her head. "What was that?" she cried. Salvatore sat up, brushing glass off his shoulder. He wasn't scared. He was furious. His eyes were burning with a cold blue fire. "That," Salvatore growled, pulling a sleek black pistol from a hidden compartment in the seat, "was a declaration of war." He pulled out his phone. "Vanessa didn't call the police this time," Salvatore said. "She told her father. And Richard Sterling was stupid enough to hire the buzzing flies, the Bratva, the Russians." He looked at Serena. "Welcome to my world, Serena. Tonight, we do not sleep." The armored limousine sped through the city, weaving through traffic with a terrifying precision. Rain lashed against the bulletproof glass, blurring the neon lights of Chicago into streaks of blood red and bruised purple. Inside the car, the silence was heavier than the humid air. Serena clutched the leather armrest, her knuckles white. She looked at Salvatore. He wasn't looking at his phone anymore. He was reloading his pistol. "Where are we going?" Serena asked, her voice barely a whisper. "To the only place in this city where the rats cannot follow," Salvatore replied. "My home." 30 minutes later, they left the city limits. They drove up a winding private road, surrounded by dense forest. As they rounded a bend, the estate came into view. It wasn't a house, it was a citadel. High stone walls topped with electrified fencing surrounded a massive Gothic-style mansion. Floodlights swept the perimeter. Men with assault rifles patrolled the gates. The gates opened automatically for the limo, and they glided up the driveway. "My God!" Serena breathed. "You live here alone." "A king is always alone," Salvatore said, holstering his weapon, "until he finds a queen, or in my case, a worthy successor." They exited the car. A team of guards surrounded them instantly, forming a human shield as they hustled Salvatore and Serena into the main hall. The interior was breathtaking. Marble floors, Renaissance paintings, a chandelier that looked like it belonged in Versailles. But the beauty was marred by the reality of the situation. Crates of ammunition were being stacked by the grand staircase, and men in tactical gear were shouting orders into radios. "Take Miss Rostova to the guest wing," Salvatore ordered a maid who appeared from the shadows. "Get her dry clothes, get her food, and Dr. Aris is to check her vitals." "I'm fine," Serena protested. "I'm a nurse. I know if I'm in shock." "You are adrenaline blind," Salvatore countered gently. "Go, I have a war to plan." Serena was led away. She showered, washing the smell of the restaurant and the fear off her skin. She put on the clothes provided, a silk blouse and trousers that fit perfectly. When she looked in the mirror, she didn't see the waitress who scrubbed floors anymore. She saw someone harder, someone who had looked death in the face. She refused to stay in the room. She navigated the massive hallways, following the sound of voices, until she found the library. Salvatore was there, standing over a massive oak table covered in blueprints and maps. 3 other men were with him, his capos. They stopped talking when Serena entered. "I told you to rest," Salvatore said, though he didn't look angry. "I can't rest," Serena said, walking into the room. "They tried to kill us. I want to know why. You said Richard Sterling is a desperate man. Why would a businessman hire the Russian Mafia to kill you?" Salvatore gestured for his men to leave. They filed out, leaving the Don and the waitress alone. Salvatore sighed and walked over to a bookshelf. He pulled a false book, revealing a hidden safe. From it, he took a small, leather-bound book. "This," Salvatore said, placing it on the table, "is the red ledger." He opened it. It was filled with names, dates, and numbers. "Richard Sterling isn't just a tech mogul," Salvatore explained. 10 years ago, his company was failing. He needed cash fast. He came to me. I lent him $5 million to save his business. But greed is a disease, Serena. When he started making money again, he didn't pay me back. Instead, he started gambling. Salvatore flipped the page. He lost millions in Macau, in Vegas, in Monaco. He started borrowing from the Bratva, the Russian Brotherhood. The Russians are not like me. I have a code. They are butchers. When Richard couldn't pay them, they threatened to take his daughter, Vanessa. Serena's eyes widened. Vanessa? Yes. Richard came to me begging 2 days ago. He asked me to guarantee his debt to the Russians, to use my reputation to keep them away. I agreed, for a price. But tonight, Salvatore's eyes hardened. Tonight his daughter spat on my hospitality. She humiliated the person who saved my life. So I cancelled the guarantee. So the Russians went after him? Serena asked. No. Salvatore shook his head. Richard panicked. He knows that without my protection, the Russians will kill him and Vanessa. So he made a deal with the devil. He told the Russians, kill Salvatore Moretti, take his territory, and your debt is paid. He put a bounty on my head to save his own skin. Serena felt sick. So it's him or us. It is always him or us, Salvatore said. But Richard made a mistake. He thinks the Russians are loyal to him because he promised them money, but mercenaries are loyal only to the winner. Salvatore walked over to the map on the table. It was a blueprint of a penthouse apartment in downtown Chicago, the Sterling residence. Tonight, Salvatore said, Vanessa is throwing an apology party at their penthouse. She thinks if she surrounds herself with celebrities and press, I won't touch her. She thinks she is safe in her tower. He picked up a red marker and circled the penthouse. She is wrong. Tonight we are not going to hide. We are going to crash the party. I'm coming with you, Serena said. Salvatore looked at her. Absolutely not. It will be a war zone. You need a medic, Serena argued, stepping forward. You said your doctor, Dr. Ares, is at the clinic. If your men get hit, they bleed out before the ambulance comes. I can stabilize them. I can help. Salvatore looked at her with a mixture of concern and pride. He saw the fire in her eyes. It was the same fire he had in his youth. You are stubborn, Salvatore grumbled. Fine, but you stay behind Luca. If you move 1 inch away from him, I will carry you out myself. The Sterling penthouse occupied the entire top floor of the Millennium Tower. It was a palace of glass and steel, floating above the clouds. Inside, the music was thumping, champagne was flowing, and Vanessa Sterling was holding court. She was wearing a silver dress, laughing with a famous actor, pretending her hands weren't shaking. Every time the elevator dinged, she flinched. Relax, Nessie. Her father, Richard Sterling, whispered in her ear. He looked terrible. His skin was grey, and he was sweating profusely. The Russians are in the lobby, the stairwell, and the service elevator. An ant couldn't get in here without them knowing. Are you sure, Daddy? Vanessa hissed. That old man. He looked at me like I was dead already. He's probably dead by now, Richard lied. The hit squad followed them. Don't worry. Just smile. We need the stock price to hold steady. The party was in full swing. Influencers were live streaming. Waiters were passing canapes. It was a bubble of delusion. Suddenly, the music cut out. The lights in the penthouse flickered and died, plunging the room into darkness. Screams erupted from the guests. The emergency lights bathed the room in an eerie red glow. Then, the private elevator doors, the ones that required a retinal scan only Richard had, chimed. Ding. The doors slid open. Standing there wasn't a Russian. It wasn't the police. It was Salvatore Moretti. He was wearing a black tuxedo, his silver wolf head cane in hand. Flanking him were 6 men in tactical suits, wearing balaclavas, and behind them, dressed in a black tactical vest over her nurse's scrubs, was Serena. The room went deathly silent. Good evening, Salvatore's voice boomed, amplified by the acoustics of the room. I apologize for the interruption. I believe I wasn't sent an invitation. Richard Sterling pushed through the crowd, his eyes bulging. How did you get past the Russians? Salvatore stepped into the room. The guests parted like the Red Sea, terrified by the aura of violence radiating from his men. The Russians? Salvatore chuckled. We had a chat in the lobby. I reminded them that you are bankrupt, Richard. I reminded them that a dead man cannot pay debts. and I offered them double your bounty to take the night off." Richard's knees gave out. He grabbed a table to stop from falling. "No!" He wheezed. Vanessa screamed, "Security! Someone do something!" But nobody moved. The celebrities and socialites were pulling out their phones, recording. This was the ultimate drama, and they were the audience. Salvatore walked slowly toward Richard and Vanessa. Serena followed, her eyes scanning the room, her medical bag gripped tight. She saw the fear in Vanessa's eyes, the same fear Vanessa had inflicted on her just hours ago. But Serena didn't feel joy. She just felt pity. "You tried to kill me, Richard," Salvatore said, stopping 5 feet away. "That I can forgive. It's business." He pointed his cane at Vanessa. "But you let your daughter drag an innocent woman into our world. You let her frame a girl who works for a living. You attacked a civilian. That is a violation of the rules." "I'm sorry," Vanessa sobbed, dropping her champagne glass. It shattered, a mirror image of the picture Serena had dropped. "I'm sorry, okay? I'll pay her. I'll give her whatever she wants." "She doesn't want your money," Salvatore said. "Serena?" Serena stepped forward. The camera flashes were blinding, but she didn't flinch. She looked at Vanessa. "I don't want your money," Serena said, her voice steady. "I want the truth. Tell them. Tell your live stream. Tell everyone what you did." Vanessa looked around. Her friends were recording. Her reputation was on the line. But the man with the gun behind Salvatore was looking at her very intently. I poured the wine," Vanessa whispered. "I did it on purpose. I wanted to humiliate her for views. I planted the bracelet." The confession was live-streamed to millions. The career of Vanessa Sterling was over in 10 seconds. "Good," Salvatore said. "Now, Richard, we have business." "Please," Richard begged, falling to his knees. "Salvatore, I'll sign over the company. I'll leave the country. Just let us go." Salvatore looked at him with disgust. "The company is already mine. The Bratva seized your assets 10 minutes ago as payment for your failure." Suddenly, the glass window of the penthouse balcony shattered inward. Crash. 3 men in black rappelled into the room. They weren't Salvatore's men. They were wearing red bandanas. "Bratva!" Luca, Salvatore's head guard, screamed. "Get down!" Gunfire erupted. It was a double cross. The Russians hadn't just taken the bribe to stand down. They had used Salvatore's arrival to trap everyone. They wanted Richard, Vanessa, and Salvatore. A clean sweep of the Chicago underworld. "Protect the Don!" Luca roared, flipping a table for cover. Salvatore grabbed Serena and threw her behind the marble bar counter. Bullets shredded the expensive artwork on the walls. The guests were screaming, crawling on the floor, a stampede of panic. Richard Sterling wasn't so lucky. A stray bullet hit him in the shoulder, and he went down screaming. "He's hit!" Serena cried, her nurse instinct taking over. She grabbed her bag. "Stay down!" Salvatore ordered, firing his pistol over the bar. "He's the enemy!" "He's a patient!" Serena yelled back. Without waiting for permission, she crawled out from behind the bar, staying low. "Serena! No!" Salvatore screamed. Serena scrambled across the floor, glass slicing her palms. She reached Richard. He was bleeding out, clutching his shoulder. Vanessa was cowering next to him, useless, screaming her head off. "Move!" Serena shoved Vanessa aside. She ripped open Richard's shirt, applying pressure to the wound. "Why?" Richard gasped, looking at the girl he had tried to frame. "Why are you helping me?" "Because I'm a nurse," Serena gritted out, packing the wound with gauze. "And because I'm not you." Suddenly, a shadow fell over them. A Russian gunman stood over them, raising an assault rifle. Serena looked up, freezing. She was defenseless. The gunman grinned. Bang! The gunman's head snapped back, and he crumpled to the floor. Salvatore stood 10 feet away, his pistol smoking. He had left cover, exposing himself to fire to take the shot. "I told you!" Salvatore roared, reloading. "Nobody touches my nurse!" But the distraction cost him. Another Russian gunman on the balcony took aim at the exposed Don. "Salvatore, look out!" Serena screamed. Salvatore turned, but he was too slow. The bullet hit Salvatore in the chest. The Don of Chicago fell. Time didn't just slow down for Serena, it shattered. She watched Salvatore fall backward, his silver cane clattering uselessly against the marble floor. The man who had been a titan, a myth, an untouchable force of nature, was suddenly just a fragile old man in a tuxedo. "Salvatore!" Serena didn't think. She didn't calculate the risk. She didn't care about the bullets chipping the granite countertop above her head. She abandoned Richard Sterling, who was stabilized, and scrambled on her hands and knees across the open floor toward the fallen Don. "Cover her!" Luca roared, his voice breaking with panic. "Suppressing fire, now!" Salvatore's bodyguards unleashed a wall of lead toward the balcony, forcing the Russian snipers to duck. In that brief window of chaos, Serena reached Salvatore. He was gasping for air, his face turning a terrifying shade of grey. A dark crimson stain was blooming rapidly across the white shirt of his tuxedo, right below the collarbone. Serena ripped his jacket open, buttons popping and skittering across the floor. "Look at me," Serena commanded, her voice shaking but her hands steady. "Don't you dare close your eyes." Salvatore looked up at her. His eyes, usually so sharp and terrifying, were hazy. He tried to speak, but only a wet, gurgling sound came out. Pink froth bubbled at his lips, pneumothorax, a collapsed lung. The bullet had punctured the chest cavity. He was drowning in his own blood. "He can't breathe!" Serena yelled to Luca, who was reloading beside her. "I need to seal the wound." She grabbed her medical bag, but in her scramble across the room, the strap had snapped. The bag was 5 feet away, too far to reach without exposing herself to the snipers. "I don't have my kit!" Serena cried. She looked around frantically. She needed plastic, something airtight. She saw a discarded pack of expensive cigars on the coffee table next to them. "Luca, the cigars! Give me the wrapper!" Luca didn't question her. He lunged, grabbed the pack, tore off the cellophane wrapper, and handed it to her. Serena wiped the blood from the hole in Salvatore's chest with her sleeve and slapped the plastic wrapper over the wound, taping it down on 3 sides with medical tape she had in her pocket. "Breathe," she whispered, pressing her hand over the plastic. Salvatore took a shuddering breath. The plastic sucked in against the wound, creating a seal. His chest rose. The color started to return to his face. "You," Salvatore rasped, gripping her wrist with a bloody hand. "You stay. Down." "Shut up," Serena said, tears streaming down her face, mixed with sweat and blood. "You fired me, remember? I don't take orders from you anymore." Just then, the sound of sirens drowned out the gunfire. Not the distant wail of a patrol car, but the heavy, thumping bass of SWAT trucks and a helicopter. The glass of the remaining windows shattered inward as tear gas canisters were launched into the penthouse. "Police! Drop your weapons!" The Russians on the balcony realized the game was up. They tried to flee, but the elevator doors opened again. This time it was the real police. Heavily armored SWAT officers who hadn't been bribed by Richard Sterling. The firefight ended as quickly as it had begun. The Russians surrendered. The room was filled with smoke, broken glass, and the groans of the injured. Paramedics rushed in, flanked by officers. "Here!" Serena screamed, waving her bloody hands. "Chest wound. Tension pneumothorax. I have an occlusive dressing in place, but he needs a chest tube now." The paramedics pushed past the stunned socialites and lifted Salvatore onto a stretcher. As they wheeled him away, He refused to let go of Serena's wrist. "She comes," Salvatore wheezed to the paramedic. "She is my doctor." Serena ran alongside the stretcher, her red dress ruined, her face smeared with soot, leaving the Sterling penthouse not as a servant, but as the only thing that mattered. Behind them, Richard Sterling was being handcuffed, while a medic tended to his shoulder. Vanessa was sitting on the floor, her silver dress stained with wine and blood, sobbing into her hands as a police officer read her rights. "Vanessa Sterling," the officer said, his voice cold. "You are under arrest for conspiracy to commit assault, filing a false police report, and obstruction of justice." Vanessa looked up, mascara running down her face. She looked for her father, but he wouldn't look at her. She looked for her friends, but they had all fled. She was completely, utterly alone. 3 months later, the autumn leaves were falling in Chicago, painting the city in shades of gold and rust. Serena walked out of the university exam hall, taking a deep breath of the crisp air. She had just finished her final nursing board exam. She was officially a registered nurse. She checked her phone. There was one message. "Dinner. 7 p.m. the estate." "Don't be late," Serena smiled. She hailed a cab. No, she didn't. She walked to the curb where a black sedan was already waiting for her. The driver, a massive man named Rocco, opened the door. "Good afternoon, Miss Serena." Rocco grinned. "How was the test?" "Easy," Serena laughed, sliding into the back seat. They drove to the estate. The security was still tight, but the atmosphere was different. It felt less like a fortress, and more like a home. When she entered the dining room, Salvatore was sitting at the head of the table. He looked thinner, and he now walked with a slight limp, in addition to using his cane, but his eyes were as sharp as ever. "You're late," Salvatore grumbled, though his eyes were twinkling. "I was becoming a professional," Serena retorted, sitting down to his right. "You should try it sometime." Salvatore chuckled. He poured 2 glasses of sparkling water. "To the nurse," he toasted. "To the patient who wouldn't listen," she replied, clinking her glass against his. "I have news," Salvatore said, his demeanor turning serious. "About the Sterlings." Serena's smile faded slightly. "I don't want to know." "You should," Salvatore said. "Richard Sterling pled guilty to all charges to avoid a life sentence. He got 20 years. His assets were seized to pay his debts to the creditors, and to me." "And Vanessa?" Serena asked quietly. Salvatore slid a newspaper across the table. It was open to the local news section. There was a picture of a run-down diner on the south side of the city. In the background, wiping a table, was a woman. She looked tired. She wore a stained uniform. Her hair was frizzy. It was Vanessa. "Her father's accounts were frozen," Salvatore explained. "Her friends abandoned her the moment the money stopped flowing. She has no degree, no skills, and a criminal record. No respectable company would hire her. She is working at Sal's diner. No relation to me. Making minimum wage plus tips." Serena looked at the photo. She remembered the way Vanessa had made her kneel. She remembered the wine on the carpet. She remembered the fear. "Do you want me to have her fired?" Salvatore asked, watching Serena closely. "I can make sure she never works in this city again." Serena looked at the photo for a long moment. Then she closed the newspaper. "No," Serena said. "Let her work. Let her feel what it's like to stand on her feet for 12 hours. Let her feel what it's like to be invisible. That is a better punishment than anything you could do." Salvatore smiled, a look of genuine respect on his face. "You are wiser than I am, Serena. You have mercy, but you are not weak." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. "I have a graduation present for you." Serena opened the box. Inside was a silver pin. It was the crest of the Moretti family, a wolf holding a rose. But below it, engraved in tiny letters, was the word familia. Family. You saved my life twice, Salvatore said softly. You are not my employee, Serena. You are my daughter. Everything I have. One day it will be yours to protect. Serena touched the pin, tears welling in her eyes. She had lost her biological father when she was young, and she had spent years fighting the world alone. Now, sitting in the mansion of the most dangerous man in Chicago, she finally felt safe. She stood up and walked over to the old man. She kissed him on the forehead. "Thank you, Papa," she whispered. Salvatore Moretti, the man who made grown men tremble, closed his eyes and patted her hand. Outside, the rain began to fall, washing the city clean, but inside it was warm. This story isn't just about a rude customer or a spilled drink. It is a lesson about the invisible scales of justice. Vanessa Sterling believed that her wealth made her invincible. She thought she could treat people like furniture because she viewed herself as a god. But she forgot the most important rule of life. You never know who you are really talking to. Serena's power didn't come from money or fear. It came from her humanity. Her act of kindness toward a stranger on the street, saving an old man without asking for a reward, built a shield around her that no amount of money could penetrate. In the end, the waitress became the queen, and the princess became the servant. It serves as a brutal reminder. Be careful who you step on today, because they might be the one holding your life in their hands tomorrow. Wow, what a roller coaster. If that moment where Salvatore revealed who he really was gave you chills, hit that like button right now. I want to know, do you think Vanessa deserved her punishment, or was working at a diner too easy for her? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one. And if you want more stories where the arrogant get exactly what they deserve and the underdog comes out on top, make sure you subscribe and turn on the notification bell. We upload dramatic, twist-filled stories like this every week, and you do not want to miss the next one. Thanks for watching, and remember, be kind, because you never know who is watching.